All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for that. Maayan Schwartz, לילה טוב? מה קורה? הכל בסדר?
הכל מצוין, חוץ ממה שלא.
I mean, no mother there every, so I just exhausted all of my Hebrew, but I felt it was incumbent on me to greet the extraordinary maker of this film with some of his language. My name is Tarek Masoud. I'm a professor at the Kennedy School. It's my honor to be asked to help spark the conversation between Maayan Schwartz and the audience about this really remarkable film. I've been instructed to remind everybody that Maayan is joining us from Israel, and so it is way past his bedtime. So we're going to try to be cognizant of that and end at, I think, 4 o'clock on the dot. Yes.
See how things are going.
Okay, I will watch my overlords, and they'll tell me when to stop. But if I may just start the conversation, and then I'll call on folks from the audience. I thought this was just a remarkable movie and deeply touching. And there are so many threads that I would like to pull on, but maybe you could just help us understand a little bit more about this remarkable project, the project being Neve Shalom. You gave us a little bit of the founders and sort of what their idea was behind it, but I would like to get a little bit more. I'd like to understand a little bit more. What did they think they were doing? Did they think by creating basically what I imagine to be a mixed kibbutz, right? It's like a kibbutz, but with Arabs and Jews. That's how I understand it. Maybe I'm wrong. That people's mindsets will change, and that the Arabs will suddenly say, hey, it's okay, we can coexist with Jews, and Jews will say, hey, it's okay, we can coexist with Arabs, and we don't need, each of us doesn't need our own independent identity. We can just be some new thing, or have a unified identity as Arabs and Jews. Like, what did they think they were doing, and why did they think it would work?
Okay. So, first of all, hello everyone. Unfortunately for you guys, you have a camera so I can see you guys. So whoever are planning just to do whatever, so I can see all of you. Okay, about your question, I think it's not me to answer this specific question. I cannot really talk on behalf of the founders. I can only say that if you would walk around and tell people that it's like a kibbutz with Jews and Arabs, they will be really offended for so many reasons. If I can have my own interpretation about the way or what they were aiming for, so I can start by giving you a little bit of a small recap of how this project started. It was founded by Bruno Sarri, who you see in the film. I know it's a short time to try to push, like it's just an hour film, and to push all those details, all those information in such a short time is a very, it's very hard to do. So, Bruno Sarri is a born Jew who moved to France and then converted to Christianity, joined the church, and decided to go to Israel. As he was sent by the church as an ambassador of the church to Israel to connect between Jews and Christians. And when he arrived to Israel, he really felt that the situation here is so much more complicated than just Jews and Christians. So he decided, what can he do in terms of spiritual meetings? He was a spiritual person. He always felt the Judaism still in him, and he wanted to find a place to mix the religions together. So for almost 10 years he tried to make a community that will connect both all three religions here. So many people came, people, rabbis and priests and chefs, and they all came, and poets and philosophers, but they couldn't make a community. Until one day arrived a couple of secular political people who said, okay, it's nice this whole religious thing, but let's put it in the side, it's not working, we need to start thinking about how we can make this place better, how we can start doing all kind of protests, and so it started from a very political point, the beginning that the community had started to establish. And I think it was, the late 70s, the late 60s, the beginning of the 70s, it was a more naive period of time. And people really were looking for ways in order to try to change reality. And today it's very easy to say, oh, retrospective point of view, we say, oh, it's just such a naive idea. But in a way, they wanted to show that you have more than one option. You don't have to just go and kill each other. You can also show that people can live together in mutual respect, even though they don't agree, even though they don't try to change the world. Although maybe some people did believe that maybe they can make a model, that one day people will replicate it. And there were moments in times in history of Israel that you didn't know where it's going to go. In the 90s, you can see it in the film, people really thought it's going there. There is a moment, I don't know if this moment of the article is in the film, but the news person that is talking about Neve Shalom, he first says, in Porta Shalom, meaning now when Porta Shalom, he used the word Porta like it's starting a war, but he said when starting the peace, like people really felt that peace is coming, and people in the village really felt that this is our chance, this is our moment to show what we learned all those years. It was really, very euphoric times, very, exciting. People really thought it's going to happen. You had the peace with Jordan, and then you started the Oslo agreements, and everything had moved to this direction. Today, when we're watching it 20 and something years since, we're thinking, oh, it was such a naive moment in time, and it was so wrong, but I think it could have gone either way. And it's the first time I started a Q&A session with a very, I would say, academic beginning.
That's because they picked an academic to moderate it, but I thought that it would be interesting for us to just have a little bit of the kind of idea behind Neve Shalom. The other thing that I thought about before we open it up to the audience, you talk a lot about, or we are exposed in the film to a little bit of your own grappling with Neve Shalom and your own decision to move back there. You say, why am I making the movie, right? I'm making it because I'm trying to, go home again in a way. So in a way, I kind of could understand why you and some of the other protagonists in the film decide to go and live there, because that's where you had grown up, it's what you knew, it's what you were comfortable with. But what I kept thinking about was the parents. Like I kept thinking, why did your parents decide to go and participate in this enterprise, or the founders of this, like the founding community, for them to actually make this decision to go and live in this way that is very different from the way that Arabs and Jews are living in Israel. It's just really quite extraordinary. It just had me curious, like, about your family and what was it about them that made them the types of people who would live in an experiment like this?
So, first of all, that's a very good question. I don't have a good answer. I think, as I said, it was a very naive moment in time. And if you would think about this project, a lot of people would say, wow, it's such a bubble, so ideal, so, so it is a bubble and the rest of the country is the real life. So people think this is how it is, harmony, but actually, when you think about it, it's the other way around. We live the conflict all the time. We live it every day. My parents, the people who came here in the beginning, they live it every day living here. So it's actually the other way around. People who, when you live with people that only look like you, talk like you, speak the same language, same culture, then you live in the bubble. Although 10 minutes drive, you have someone who is totally different than you and you're just ignoring him like he doesn't exist. So, innovation is the other way around.
Yeah, that really came through very clearly in the film as well. When I think somebody literally says that, like, I'm living the conflict by being here. They're not saying it in a, it's clear that they're torn about that. Like, it's clear that life might have been easier if you had lived in a quote-unquote bubble where, if you're an Arab, you're dealing with Arabs, if you're a Jew, you're dealing with Jews. I'm going to open it up to the audience, but I'll ask one last question, which is, about the impact on your community. Because, you spoke very powerfully about living the conflict, and of course there was no more searing illustration of the depth of the conflict and how difficult it is to resolve than the terrorist massacre of October 7th and the aftermath of it. How did your community deal with that event and the ongoing events subsequently?
So yeah, that's the first question people ask. October 7th, that's what the...
Well, I'm a professor. I try not to be predictable, but...
Yeah, so as like any other person or any other place in the world, and mostly in Israel, in the region, everybody were affected by this. I think the whole world in a way was affected by this specific dates, specific events. So we're not any different in these terms. But always when people ask me, they say, oh, now in what's wow, things are probably very tense at the moment. People, it's very crazy at the moment, very interesting. And I always say, it is so much more boring than you would expect. Of course, there are a lot of feelings. It's been the hardest year of my life. I had really moments that I felt so bad. I physically collapsed. Okay, really, I had a very bad time, and I'm sure that people here have a hard time. If you're going to start from October 7th, of course, in the beginning, everybody was shocked, and there were a lot of mixed feelings. But as a community, we decided that we need to talk about those feelings. And those meetings were very, very hard. And people said very, hard things. It wasn't easy at all. And people were insulted, people were hurt. But we continued doing those meetings. There were, I think, around 5 or 6 meetings. And I think at the end of, the last meetings you can feel and you can see that even though it's so hard and so hurtful, the most important thing was that you saw the feeling of the fact that you don't want to let this thing fall apart. That was the most important feeling that I got on those meetings. But except that, you would walk around in the village, everything would seem normal. Parents putting their kids in schools and kindergartens, they go to the playground. You won't notice anything different. The only thing you can maybe see a different would be the WhatsApp group. WhatsApp group is a horrible place anywhere. But so that's where you can see maybe politics. But I would say that it also became an alternative way of sharing information because unfortunately, especially in Israel at the moment, but not only, I think that today with this polarized world when everybody is consuming the exact news that will tell him exactly what he wants to hear, then we arrive in an era that it doesn't matter anymore. You just want to consume the news that you want to consume. And then you get one narrative with one story, with one faces, with one victim. And then you choose what not to add to the story. And in this place, in this village, we have at least 2 streams of information, at least. Which means at least 2 streams of sadness and really, that's what sometimes it's so overwhelming, so hard to swallow, to imagine how many pain has happened in the past year. And I think when each one is choosing just to hear one story, one narrative, and somebody told me that today's politics is a competition between 2 half-truths. And I think, the more you try to build up the picture and combine those half-truths together, then you can get to a very, to a better perspective on reality and a better way to start, stepping to the future. Because if not, you're just stuck in your story, you're stuck in your own echo chamber, and we cannot proceed from this.
Wow, that's extraordinary. I hope it did.
That's why you didn't put the microphone on the people, because whenever they cry, I don't hear it.
Well, I know, I was just going to say that. It was thunderous applause. I never heard applause that loud. Okay, so I am now going to open things up to the audience, and unfortunately, I've been instructed, I gotta keep the mic. So I will call on you, and then I will ask you to use your most powerful voice to ask your question. It should be succinct, so, if your question begins, this is more of a comment than a question. This is not a question. It's just in a question mark. And because Maayan has to go to sleep, I want to try to get in a few questions, and so to keep them brief would be very helpful. So just please put up your hand, and I will call on you. Okay, the lady in the blue shirt. Yes.
So thank you so much. This is wonderful. I'm just interested because Maayan is saying that it's very similar to how it was, but are the demographics pretty much the same now, and are the numbers more or less the same as they were in the 70s?
Great, a fantastic question. So I don't know if you could hear it. Should I restate the question for you?
Yeah, I don't hear it.
Okay. The question was, why is the moderator so handsome? No, the question was about the demographics of Neve Shalom. And, have those changed over time? So, is it, what is it? Is it 50-50, Arabs and Jews? I mean, what is it like now, and has it changed?
So, since the beginning of...
Sorry, 1 second.
I think you missed the how many are actually there.
Oh, and what's the population? What's the total population? Sorry, thank you.
So that's that's a good question because it leads me to another explanation that the film doesn't really go into, and usually, like, I should have added the title at the end of the film. So we'll go to that later. I just want to say that there were always an attempt to make the village half-half. So in the beginning of the days, it took a while until a Palestinian family were joining the community, but later on it was more shifted. But it was always an attempt to keep the half-half, even today, half-half between Israelis and Palestinians. But what happened is that, okay, now I will get to the more expanded explanation, is that Neve Shalom, Waqf Salam, sits on the Latrun monastery land. Okay, well, sometimes people ask me, is it in the West Bank? Is it in the Israel, between the 67 line? So it's actually on the 67 line. The Latrun monastery sits on the exact line in Latrun junction, and over there, on the land of the Latrun monastery sits Neve Shalom, and since it was established till today, Israel hasn't given the village even 1 inch. So when people ask me how come the village never expanded itself, it's because Israel never wanted it for this to happen. This is why there were no more other communities as Neve Shalom in Israel, because Israel never wanted this to happen. So that's something that is very important to understand when you think about this project. Then when you look at it and you think about it and you think, wow, why did they do that? It never expand, never duplicate itself. That's one of the greatest reasons why. Now, that's the explanation of the population, so that's a very limited area. So even though there were hundreds of families waiting in line to go to join the village will only accept several every year. And we did get like 3 expanded land plots from the monastery. They gave us more land. They gave, but anyway, and we did become around 120 families, something like this. We started, when I was a child, it was between 30 and 40, so 120 is big for me, but I know one street in Boston would be more than 120 families. And so there was an attempt always to keep it half-half, and today, because people also they build their house and they do, let's say, another floor, they can rent it to another person, and then things get more complicated. We can't really count and see exactly how many people. And also, kids are coming back. So it depends who is coming back, and then change. So I can't really tell if it's half-half, but there's always an attempt to do that.
Just as a quick follow-up for this, just to understand the texture of this community. So if somebody wants to live in it, they have to apply? Like, how does this work exactly?
So, as I said, it's a very limited area, limited land. So whoever managed to be selected, there is a selection committee, and then if you've been selected, you can be a member until a specific year. And since then, they said, okay, we cannot select any more people, only people who can buy their plot, and there are people waiting for years for this to happen. So some did manage to be selected and buy a plot, a land, and also each family each family until the age of, I think, 2000, received 1 plot to a child. So if you have more than 1 child, there's a problem. Like for example, in my family, I will be the one building, although I have a bigger brother and a younger sister. We're now working on building and planning a house in Israel, which is sometimes feel not the best idea in the world. So the new areas to build houses were half people who were selected from the outside and some kids who come back. It's half. So I hope I answered your question.
This is great. No, thank you so
And
much.
just if you want to rent, hopefully you will find a place to rent, and then you can just rent it if the owner will want to rent it to you. So that's like a gray zone thing.
I just heard a bunch of people go on Zillow to see who will rent the building. I have a person all the way over there. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for this film. One of the most moving moments was in the classroom when the teacher was talking about the Yom HaZikaron, when the Jews were sad, the Day of Remembrance, and the Nakba. And then she introduced that great Hebrew Arabic word, narrative. And I was wondering, is there an educational model that's coming out of Neve Shalom that could be shared? Because it seemed that in that moment, there was the potential for people beginning to learn from each other.
That's a marvelous question, so I'm going to try to do justice to it. I will probably fail, and somebody in the audience will yell at what I forgot. But it's a really wonderful question about the educational model in Neve Shalom. And so the gentleman is pointing to the scene in the film, which is quite a moving scene about where the Jewish students go off to engage in the remembrances for Yom HaZikaron, and the Arab teacher is explaining to the students why, this is why Jewish students have a different set of things that they're commemorating than the Arab students on the same day. The Arab students, it will be the Nakba. And she talks about narrative instead of the et. I don't know what the Hebrew word for narrative is. And, this is actually quite sophisticated. I teach at a little place called Harvard where people haven't quite figured out this idea of competing narratives and where, is there an educational model, I think the gentleman is asking, that Neve Shalom has developed that is exportable to other places, maybe even including Harvard University?
So, first of all, the word narrative in Hebrew is narrative, so it's okay. But I think this scene is more than any other scene in the film. I think symbolize or reflect what I was hoping and aiming in the film, and what I believe, in a way, that it is a competition between narratives. And I think this specific community, have a lot of difficulties, and it's not perfect, but at least one thing I can tell you for sure is the fact that we agree that it's okay not to agree. And I think this is something that is so important. And when people ask me, why did I go and bring my child to live in this chaotic idea, experiment, community, whatever you would call it. And first of all, I hope I did the right choice, I never know. And I always say that, when I started doing this film and I thought, wow, it was so difficult to me to live in this place and then to go out and then to have my own identity problems, just to understand later on, when I did the film and I was, a different perspective suddenly, looking at the world and looking on us, the kids who grew up there, I would say that yes, it is difficult, but who said difficult is necessarily a bad thing? It's something that is it took me a while to understand. Sometimes, actually, to see a more complicated reality, to see a more complex reality, to understand that there is more than one way to tell a story, I think is one of the most important gifts you can give to a child. And regarding the question about the educational model, actually one thing that did came out of Neve Shalom, there is a school chain called Yad B'Yad. I don't know if you heard about them. It's a bilingual school that there is, I think, around 10 of them around the state. And they actually came to Neve Shalom and learned about the model. It's not the exact same model, but they did get inspired by the school in Neve Shalom. So that's something that you can say is a success story of the educational model.
The school's called Yad B'Yad?
Yad B'Yad.
Oh, Yad B'Yad. Okay, marvelous. I don't know if you also detected, but there was thunderous applause also when you were answering that question. Okay, I think we have time for 2 more questions, so let me look out into the audience. I'm going to try to get some diversity in the demographic characteristics of the questioners. Go ahead, here.
Do you want me to do it on the mic or?
No.
I love the question about replicating the model for kids and bringing this to more kids, but at the end of the day, adults are the ones who start wars, adults are the ones who are fighting wars, adults are the ones who are writing the media and who are teaching the kids. So my question for you, because I want to share your film with my Israeli family and all these other people I know, my question is, how do we create more adults with the same kind of feelings towards this person who's supposed to be the other? How do we create more people like you who haven't had the advantage of growing up in that school environment and won't have it anytime soon? How can we replicate the model for the people actually running societies right now?
Great question. I'm actually going to take 2 questions and then we'll wrap up. So the lady here in the very back. Yes.
I wondered if the film has been shown in Israel, and if so, what has been the reaction?
Marvelous. Okay, great. Very good. So basically, 2 questions. The first question was, we've seen a lot of and talked a lot about educating children, but the people who may really need education are adults. What are the prospects? What are the ideas that you have for instilling in adults the spirit that Neve Shalom has been so good at instilling in children? And then, you know what? I'm getting old. I've totally forgotten what the second question was. Oh, has the film been? Thank you so much for that. Sorry. Has the film been shown in the state of Israel?
And how about other states in the Middle East?
So
And other countries in the Middle East. That's a good
And what was the
question.
reception?
Yeah, so I will start with the first question because the second question, I will start with the second question because the first question I don't have a good answer, unfortunately. I don't have any, there is something they call School for Peace, which is an organization that started even before we had school. It's like they started with meetings between teenagers, Jews and Palestinians, and they're doing it since so many decades ago. But I know now they're doing other projects that are taking all kind of people from municipalities. And I'm not sure about it. They have their own ideology. It's like a organization inside the village. Whoever wants to be, to research, to make a research on this topic, I would recommend. I'm not the expert, and I don't always agree with everything they have to do, but that's what they do. They try to educate the adults. And the second question, you see, I'm old as you.
The second question was about has it been shown in Israel and other countries in the region, and what was the reception of that?
Okay, so I aim. First of all, I didn't aim to anyone. I just wanted to go ask my friends some questions, and I took my camera, and then suddenly, whoa, it's going to be a film. What do I do about that? I was frightened as hell, really. It was so scary for me, suddenly thinking about everybody's going to watch it. Not to talk about the fact that now, a couple of years later, I'm talking to you guys in Boston about the film that I made that I never thought anyone would ever see. But I did receive funding from the Israeli broadcast TV, the biggest one called Kan 11, and it's public free TV, so it means everyone can watch it. So in Israel, when it's just it premiered in Dok Aviv, the biggest documentary festival in Israel, and then it was aired online, and at least 50,000 people had watched it. And so people did watch it. I always wanted to show it to more people, and I'm still working on showing it to more people. And by the way, it also arrived to BBC in Arabic, which is a very happy thing, to ORF in Germany, and DW in Germany, or if it was in Austria. So anyway, it did arrive to an audience, a greater audience than I would expect, but I would say that the audience in Israel were very, very surprising reaction to me. Like, I was surprised by the reaction in Israel. The critique came mostly from the left side, which was surprising to me, because I thought, okay, I'm going to show something that is, in my understanding of the film that I show, is very humanistic, very, and for the right side it will be hard to swallow, but actually many people from the right said, I don't agree with your political ideas, but I can't, I like the film, I understood, I felt, that I understand the characters, and that was my point at the end of the day. The critic actually came from the left, who said, I don't criticize enough, I don't show enough the occupation, and I do understand the meaning and the importance of those type of films, but I always have the feeling that those type of films stay screened to a very narrow group of audience, and it just stay convincing those who are convinced already. And it's not like I don't understand the meaning and the importance of those films, because I always say film is the media to show and to educate and to show everybody everything all the time. But I was aiming in this specific film just to show the coin story, that there is more than one way to tell a story, that there is more than one narrative, and we can live together in this community, not agreeing, and still deciding to continue living and not killing each other, which is so crazy, something that is still, considered okay in my region at the moment. And it's depressing, but it's something that is not, it's not for granted, the fact that you can live together and not agree, even when it's complicated, even when it's hard. And so that was I was aiming in my film.
Well, I hope you can hear and you can see the extraordinary appreciation that this audience has for the film you made and for the subject of the film, this amazing, almost otherworldly, but very important and vital project of Wahed al-Salam or Nev Shalom. So thank you so much for making the film. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us about it, and we wish you, the people of Israel and the Palestinian people, peace, harmony, and prosperity. Thank you.
Let's hope for a better future so dark these days. Let's hope let's hold on to those feeling. And I would ask you guys to maybe join us, maybe go on social media, follow us on Children of Peace, maybe, help us share the story.
We absolutely will. Thank you, Maayan. Thank you. Let us go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you to the organizers.